Hello and welcome to the Cup of Triathlon podcast. We're brought to you every week by our sponsors oxygenaddict.com, fueledbycake.com, myprotein.com. Is it .com or .co.uk? I can't remember, Helen.
Rob, you should know this.
I should know this. I think it's .com. Anyway, one or the other. They'll give you a discount regardless. And raceforce.co.uk. I've already introduced Helen, the wonderful Helen.
Hello.
The wonderful, wonderful, fast Helen.
Hi.
How are your legs feeling, mate?
A little bit sore, I won't lie.
It's been a great weekend of racing.
Yep.
All over the world.
Yep.
And especially at the Malaga Marathon.
It was...
It's good. Did you manage to follow anything out there? Because it was like Bahrain was on, and then Ironman Western Australia, and obviously you're chasing people through the streets of Malaga, aren't you?
Yeah. Well,
anything?
At some point I had seen that Luke Mackenzie had done something incredible at Ironman Western Australia, but the female race hadn't quite finished.
Okay.
So I'm trying to think, would that have been yesterday morning or yesterday evening? I think that might have been the morning of the marathon.
Right,
so I did have a quick look at that, and I had definitely seen about an impressive performance in Bahrain as well.
An impressive performance. Yeah, it's a strange day because they cancelled the swim, didn't they?
Yeah, because it was high winds, wasn't it? And crazy currents and high winds. They had to cancel the swim. And
How
was
high
the
the
thing.
wind's got to be to cancel a half Ironman swim?
It's got to be mental.
I'd like to hear from somebody who's out there to find out. Maybe they've just been a bit soft.
No, it must have been. It must have been.
Must have been super crazy, mustn't it?
But I honestly, I think I had just woken up. That would make sense, wouldn't it? Because they'd be a couple of hours ahead. And I looked and I thought, oh my God, these times are incredible.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah.
Did you not twig something was up?
No, I thought, Jesus. Wow, I thought they were quick, but that really is
She's
quick.
racing for $1 million and she's gone fast.
Yeah, and then I was like, oh, lack of swim. That would explain it.
Yeah, man. Well, it must have been a fast course because even if you had on like, say, 30 minutes for a swim and transition, Daniela Ryf would still have gone sub 4.
Yeah.
She'd have gone 3:58, which is like, it's about as fast as it gets, isn't it, over half Ironman? And Bart Aeronauts, who won the men's, would have gone 3:41, and that's with a 25-minute swim.
That's it. And that's what.
And 5 minutes for transitions. So it's got to be on its right day. Obviously, the crazy winds and stuff aside, it's got to be one of the fastest courses, probably in the world, I would say.
Yeah.
But yeah, swim cancelled due to crazy high winds. And obviously the big news there is, can Daniela Ryf take it down to win the Triple Crown?
And the answer is, yes, she blooming well can.
The answer is a resounding, look at the wind beneath your wings when you're chasing $1 million.
Wow. She won by nearly 10 minutes, Rob, ahead of Caroline Steffen.
It wasn't a slight win. She's dominated, hasn't she? This last year and a half, she's been untouchable.
Absolutely, and I think it would have been really, really interesting for Daniela Ryf at her peak and Chrissie Wellington at her peak to go up against each other.
Oh yeah,
wouldn't that have been?
Oh yeah,
really.
Yeah, very much so, because you've always had the kind of like Rinny chasing down Chrissie Wellington as the superstar runner. Chrissie was a pretty damn good runner herself. People forget that.
Oh, awesome.
Rinny's run was only shaved a few seconds off what Chrissie Wellington did, and people forget that, I think. But Daniela Ryf is the total package. She's strong on the swim and the bike like Chrissie was as well. So imagine if... Do you reckon we can talk her into a comeback? Come on, Chrissie.
No.
Come back and go head to head. It could have like a female iron war. That would be awesome.
Maybe in 15 years' time or something.
How old is Chrissie?
38, 39, 38.
So she could do a Dave Scott and come back at 40 and race pro still. Dave Scott came back at 40 and finished second.
Yeah, that's amazing. I can pencil it in for 10 years down the line.
Come back at 50.
Yeah.
You think a 10-year comeback? Her against Natasha Badman at 60 and Daniela Ryf at 40.
Yeah.
That'd be a good race.
Yeah, see? Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Super cool. Right, come on, let's go through these results then. So Daniela Ryf, it sounds like, took no prisoners. Did they have like a short run before the bike? I presume. They can't have just set them off on the bikes, can
I
they?
don't know. See, this is what we need to find out. This is what we need to ask.
I think I've read somewhere that there was a short run before it,
Okay.
but I mean, how short?
Well, you can
Who
you can
knows?
imagine, like Australia style surf competitions, right? When they have to start with like their back to the beach and then turn around and run. So,
Like in a press-up position.
yeah, that's what I'm
I think
imagining.
that's when they spread their bike shoes out
Yeah.
around transition. They had to find it. We need to find out. I'm trying to get a call lined up later on with Caroline Livesey.
Oh, brilliant.
She's really struggling. God bless her. She had an amazing race in fifth. She got the red eye back, and she was at a desk at 8:30 this
Oh,
morning.
good God.
So she is. I mean, talk about grafting. She's back at a full-time job. Is she an engineer? Do I
Yep,
remember that correct?
engineer. Yep.
So she's back at a desk. We're meant to do the interview tonight, and she's just like, "Look, dude, I'm too tired." Totally understandable. So hopefully I'll be able to get on before we go to air.
So she'll have all the answers to these
She'll know
questions.
what's going on. Yeah. But I'm presuming there was some kind of short run. I remember a few years ago, well, many years ago, they did this at New Zealand and they had to cancel the swim totally. And they set the guys off there as a time trial at, I think, 5-second intervals to try and get them all through. But they went like in seeded order back to front for the pros. So all the guys had to do was, did he go back to front or front to back?
Don't know.
It was in favour of the guy who'd won the year before anyway.
Okay. Cam Brown?
Cam
Yeah.
Brown, yeah. But he got beaten that year.
Oh.
So somebody rode with him
Yeah.
and then
And then beat him.
just drilled it on the end. It's that big Estonian guy, I think. Alan Ayar Jonsson,
Nice.
who I'm mentioning because he's now the race director of the latest to be announced Ironman Estonia.
Oh my goodness. Rob, you just come out with all this knowledge.
Breaking news, man.
Wow.
Breaking news. He caused some stirs years ago because he came over and he raced in the British Championships as a guest of somebody at Milton Keynes, and he won the British Olympic Distance Triathlon Championships.
Oh, no.
And everyone was like, well, hang on, that can't be right because he's not British. It's fair enough he's won the race, but he can't be British champion. And then they had to change the rules for next year so that people can still enter from other countries, but they can't be the British champion, which was like some kind of oversight in the rules, I guess.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, all this knowledge coming through, hey?
I love it. I'm impressed.
What happens when you're an old git like me? You've watched every race since the dawn of time. They got eaten by dinosaurs on the bike leg.
Oh, goodness.
Right, so Daniela Reef, 3:28. Caroline Steffen, 3:37. Oh, 9 minutes, man.
It's amazing, isn't it? And just to sort of, let's put a little bit of context on Riff's performance. She did a 2:07 bike and a 1:18 run.
Oh,
Blistering.
blistering isn't the word for it. Now, the question is, was that run a little bit short because maybe part of it was at the start?
Well, there you
Who
go.
knows?
There's the question for Caroline.
All will be revealed later
Yeah.
on, won't it?
So Caroline Steffen was second in 3:37. Asa Lundstrom of Sweden got third in 3:39, finishing 10 minutes ahead of Jodie Swallow, who did a 2:12 bike and a 1:34 run. That was 3:49. And then, Caroline Livesey came in fifth. Brilliant performance. 2:22 on the bike and a 1:32 run to finish in 3:57. Fantastic.
Solid. And then straight back to work. So there's no excuses for anybody out there who's sitting there thinking, oh, if I was a pro, I could do loads of training. Because it's not true.
No.
You'd be going to a full-time job like most of these guys as well. Except Daniela Reef, she's sitting at home counting stacks of 50s, isn't she?
But I was going to say, she's
I like it.
she has been. Didn't she go back to university this year, or she was finishing off university, or
Really?
Yeah, she's definitely been doing her studies over the past 2 years. Perhaps not over, I don't know, maybe the last semester or whatever. But I know for
You'd imagine you take some time off with $1 million on the line.
well, yeah, but I know for sure. Going into Kona last year, there was definitely university going on at the same time.
Wow.
So
How old is she? Do you know?
28.
Wow, so she's a youngster then,
Yeah.
isn't she, in Ironman terms as well?
Totally. I remember.
10 years worth of her.
Amazing,
Wow.
isn't it? I remember watching the women's triathlon at London 2012, and I I had come back from Switzerland, from living and working in Switzerland, like a year or so before. So I was still very into my Swiss sport. And I remember getting quite excited because I was like, oh, look, she's Swiss. So when she went past in the pack, I would have been like, hop Schwyz, hop Schwyz. And, but, she didn't, that wasn't where her success lay. And so to see the impression that she's then gone on to make over half Ironman and the Ironman distance is just utterly incredible. It's almost like at London, she was kind of a no one. She was just in the pack, didn't do anything spectacular.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's absolutely dominated, hasn't she?
It makes you wonder, doesn't it, if more of these ITU people stepped up earlier. I'm hoping to see what Will Clark can do if he can get himself injury free over the winter. Because he had a lot of bad luck this year, and again, going back years and years, Will Clark was world junior silver medalist, bronze medalist, gold medalist at just about every event that was going. Yeah. 220 magazine used to have him and Ollie Freeman in every other month winning some kind of junior Europeans or junior worlds. Yeah. So he's got the pedigree for it. And, you could argue that had the Brownlees not come along, he'd have been sort of the number one Olympic guy around at the time as well. So,
and you look at, David McNamee, what he did this year. And that's straight from ITU, isn't it?
It is.
So, Rob, there's one other name which I wanted to mention because she had a really, really good performance. She came in 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th female overall. Gabby Carnworth is an age grouper from Great Britain. She finished in 4:08.
Oh, wow. Yeah, good stuff.
Really good result for her.
It's only 10 minutes down on Caroline Livesey. That's real good performance.
She was at the World Champs in Austria, and I think she won the 30 to 34 age group at Staffordshire.
Good knowledge. There you go. Helen's Wikipedia. The Murraypedia strikes again.
What about in the males?
Love it.
Have you got the male results?
On the males, it's only going to go one way when you cancel a swim, and that is Bart Aeronaut's way, isn't it? 3:11. That guy can swim and can bike and run. Rudy Wild apparently took it to him on the run, though, and pulled back another couple of minutes on the run. So whether Bart was kind of shutting it down a bit, but he's a quality athlete. He ran in the low 240s at Ironman France last year. It's just, if he can get his swim, he swims all right. He's kind of a mid-50s swimmer, but he's always coming back from there. So we can get him to team up with Joe Skipper.
Oh, yeah, that'd be.
Get those boys to ride together. Rudy Wild in second in 3:12, so only a minute between them. And James Kanama takes third in 3:13.54, so close race there.
Fantastic. And then there was, the other race that we just chatted about briefly at the very beginning was Ironman Western Australia.
That is one of my all-time favourite, when I backpacked around Australia.
Yeah. Bustleton?
Bustleton is a place I went to with my mum and dad in our camper van.
Oh, nice.
Absolutely awesome venue for a race. Have you seen anything about this race at all?
Do you mean this race? Because the only thing I've seen is the time that Luke McKenzie did.
Well,
other than that,
the venue itself, they've got a pier that goes out into the sea at Bustleton that's 2 kilometres long.
Oh, wow.
Like literally 2 kilometres long. So it's a long bloody way to walk out down this pier. But they originally talked about having the swim down one side and back down the other.
Oh.
It's brilliant. When I was training for my first Ironman, this was 2003, I went and swam up and down the pier. And it was like the rite of passage of triathletes out there. Oh, wow. It's a blooming long way, man. And then the bike ride is totally pan flat. Like there must be a metre of elevation gain on it the whole way through rainforests. Oh. So if it's windy, you're pretty much protected from it. It looks like they had some rain this year, actually.
It looked pretty grey in some of the photos I saw.
Yeah, it looked pretty grey and stormy. And then again, the run, totally pan flat. So it is a course made for fast times. And the previous course record was an 8:04 by Jason Shortis. Luke McKenzie's come along on the back of his, tough race at Kona and his DNF there. And he's absolutely smashed it to pieces. 7:55.
Yeah, that is unbelievable. And if you look at his bike split compared to everybody else, it's like he's on a different planet. He was 20 minutes faster on the bike. It's
nuts, isn't it? It's absolutely nuts. Did he ride 4:08?
Yeah, 4:08, and then finished off with a 2:52 marathon. Woo!
To put it in perspective, if he'd have run the same kind of time that Raylert ran.
Yeah.
Raylert ran a 42, I think, didn't he, or a 41 the year he did his world record. He'd have gone 7:45 or 7:44, so we'd only been a couple of minutes off the overall course record, overall world record. So just shows his quality is. It's not just a flash in the pan, that second at Kona. Absolutely amazing race.
And that's brilliant that it kind of came together for him.
Yeah, isn't it just? And on the home course as well. You've got to imagine if you were British doing that at Bolton or Ironman Wales, and he's like the whole way around the run course, everyone was shouting at him, "Come on, you can break 8 hours all the way around the last lap." I'd love to see film of it.
That is impressive. And so he broke the fastest ever Ironman record on Australian soil, which had belonged to Craig Alexander. And Crowe, I think, tweeted something like, he deserves to break it, essentially.
Yeah, so. It's a world-class performance or something, he said. He seems like a really, what's the word? Like a really sort of, not humble, but, willing to give respect where it's due. Yeah. And when somebody breaks Craig Alexander's record, that shows you the kind of standard. If Luke Mackenzie can put it together in Kona, there's no question he's a potential future champion there. And it'll give him massive confidence, won't it?
Definitely.
4:08, man.
Bonkers, isn't it?
It's just mental.
Yeah.
I'd love to know what kind of power he had to put out to do that on that course. And it was wet as well, so it's not like it was even your classic fast day.
No.
Unbelievable.
So yeah, he could go way, way faster. That's what's...
Yeah, he could do. Right, so let's have a little nosy through the results here. Luke Mackenzie wins it in 7:55. Last year's winner, Dennis Chevreau, in 8:16. It's got to break your heart when you get off the bike after having ridden 4:28 yourself to be told that you're 20 minutes down. You'd be like, What?
What was he on?
Yeah, man. Per Bittner in third. David Dello takes fourth.
Yeah. He had a fast run, didn't he?
Didn't he just? Yeah. 2:46, that's shifting. And then we have an age group winner, Robert Wormold from Great Britain. Wonder whether he's a proper Brit or whether he's living over in Australia full time. 9:08 to win his age group in 20th place overall.
Impressive. Very, very impressive.
Scorchio.
Love it.
Meanwhile, on the ladies' side...
Yeah, it was the first Ironman win for Sarah Piampiano of the States.
Say that again. I love how you say that.
Piampiano.
Piampiano.
Who finished in 9:03. She had a really solid run. She did a 3:01 run after a 4:50 bike and a 1:06 swim.
Yeah, now there's some great video of her. The Ironman website did a really good tweet update, to be fair. And the guy on the on the bikes, on the mountain bikes, he was filming little clips of it on his mobile phone, it looks like, and then uploading them straight away. So you got to see her pass. I think she was on 4th or 5th off the bike.
Okay.
And they had Twitter updates of like 10 seconds of her passing people each time.
I saw her pass Van Vlerken, and they did she did like a little high five, but sort of high five pat on the butt.
High five on the ass.
That was it. So I spotted that because they were saying that Van Vlerken had been walking, so yeah.
Yeah, she'd had food poisoning apparently in the run up to it.
Oh, that's not what you want, is it?
Managed to pull off third with a 9:12 with food poisoning.
Oh, I'm just thinking food poisoning is, then you really don't want to be putting gels inside you if you've had food poisoning. Ugh, no, far from it. So that is...
Do not at all.
Oh, goodness. That's good going then, with food poisoning. Maureen Hoof of Germany finished second in 9 hours and 9 minutes, ahead of Van Vlerken, who finished in 9:12. And then it was Dimitri Lee Duke in fourth, 9:26. And then fifth was a British. Again, it could be do we know, is it a British or is it an Aussie-British person? But Lauren McGregor, which is awesome, Rob. She did 9:49.
Well solid. And 61st overall as well. That's quality, isn't it? 59-minute swim, so she's 7 minutes ahead of most of the pro women with that swim. That's amazing, isn't it?
That's really well. Yep.
Really, really amazing. 5:12 on the bike, so she's given up 22 minutes there, and then a 3:31, so she's kind of held it together on the run. Yep. But 9:50 age group overall ladies win. Lauren McGregor, we salute you with a Great British flag in one hand and a Australian flag in the
She
other.
lives in North Perth, apparently.
Does she?
Yeah. Yep.
Good for her.
Exactly. So
I
there
might
we
go and join her.
go.
Not in a weird, stalky way. Just like move to Perth.
Wouldn't be a bad place to live, would it? Quite far from
Man, we've
everywhere
been
else,
talking
but
about it. We've been talking about moving to Australia, Linz and I.
seriously?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, we've had real, you know, it's cold in it in the winter.
Oh, yeah. I kept on saying, should we move to Spain? Why would you want to live in Great Britain if you could live in, southern Spain
Yeah.
this time of year? It's still like 18, 19, 20 degrees and the sun
Oh,
shines.
man, really?
Yeah.
Is it really? Because people say that when they move to Spain, don't they?
No, it really was.
That'd be enough for me, Wouldn't have to be red hot. If I could just get out in
Blue skies.
shorts,
There were
shorts and a t-shirt.
loads of people on their bikes going up and down by the sea. Clearly, they were Spanish, so they were completely wrapped up, as we would be on a winter's day. But I was running in shorts and a vest top. It wasn't cold.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
So come on, give us the race highlights, Helen. We had a big Twitter. People don't know you at all, do they? People do not know your marathon history. There were wild, wild quotes of what you were going to do.
So well, let's go back. So basically,
Interestingly,
last week.
quite accurate ones.
Well, yeah, but
Go on.
I think there are more people who.
Who know you and get their ass kicked by you at the track every
Maybe.
week. Yeah.
So last week, Rob decided to get you guys to guess my marathon time. So we had it on Facebook, on the Cover of Try Facebook page, and the aim was guess Helen's marathon time, and you can win an Oxygen Addict visor. So we had a few guesses
really giving
in
out
there.
Big prices.
Yeah. I think Gareth Petts guessed 3:42, and that was the sort of slowest
Sorry,
time.
Gareth.
And
Sorry, Gareth, miles off.
and the fastest prediction was 3:09 from
Who was that from?
Andy Heaps.
Ooh, Andy Heaps.
Yeah.
He's a man who knows his runners.
But the winner was Annette Edwards.
Was it really?
Yeah. Who predicted 3 hours and 11 minutes.
And what did you do overall?
Well, can we go on my chip time? Because the chip time's better than the gun
Chip
time.
the chip time is the correct one. Yeah. What was your chip time?
So my chip time was 3 hours, 11 minutes, and 21 seconds.
Wow.
Therefore, Annette wins.
Because Shane Wilson, I think he said he was 38 seconds out.
Yeah, he said something, but he said
He must
something
have got
like
3:12, did he?
3:12 something.
Yeah. Or 3:11:59.
No, it
I'll
wasn't.
give him something as well. We'll give him a t-shirt or something. That's pretty close. Well done, Annette Edwards.
Yeah. So Annette gets the visor.
Get in touch and we'll send you a visor. Living the dream. We should have contacted Daniela Reef and see if she'd have chucked in a raft of 50s as well.
She might have had a few spare. Yeah, here you go.
You'd make her own turbo room out of bricks of $100 bills.
Oh, goodness.
So come on, tell us all about it then, because let's give some context here. Although we knew you were going to go a lot faster than this, your previous marathon best was?
So let me go. I'm going to take you back to the beginning. So 2004, I did my first marathon. Did it with my dad. We did the London Marathon dressed as fairies, raising money for charity. We did it in 5 hours and 20.
5 hours and 20 minutes.
Yep.
That's 5 hours and 20 minutes.
I went back to London in 2008, this time not dressed as a fairy, but I've been doing a fair amount of running, and I did 4:11, which at the time I was absolutely over the moon with, because that would obviously be an hour and 10 minutes faster than I had done it last time.
10, so 2.5 minutes a mile faster. Bit of context there.
Should I say, my dad was fine up till halfway, but then started walking. He really hadn't done the training.
Did you break him?
Did I
Sorry,
break
Dad.
him?
Sorry, Dad, I'm leaving you.
No, we stuck together. It was a really nice thing to do. We stuck together. To be honest.
Oh, in the first one, you mean?
Yeah,
okay.
in the first one.
I thought you meant he'd come back with you for the second one.
No.
Right, gotcha.
Okay, so then my third road marathon was Lisbon in 2012, and I did 3:46.
3:46.
So that was the last marathon I'd done.
That was the year you went to Austria as well, wasn't it? 2012.
Austria was 2013 for Ironman Austria.
2013.
Yeah.
You went there. Right, okay.
Yeah. So the
So
summer after, like
3.
6 months later, basically.
Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha. And so, coming into this one,
Yep.
we know you've run it's like sub 130 for half marathons a couple of times, yeah?
I did 129 last February.
129.
Yep. My, what else do you want? 10K?
Yeah, 10K time.
So last March, a fraction over 40 minutes, so like 40 minutes and, I don't know, a handful of seconds.
A handful of seconds, yeah.
Yeah.
So again, we're showing an improvement in form there. That'd give you probably a 126 or 27 in that kind of time there.
Yeah.
I would think. Maybe even a little bit faster. But yeah, okay. So going into the marathon then.
Yeah.
It's all to play for. My little envelope was written on here with my predicted finishing time.
Open it, go on.
I had actually written down I thought you were going to do 3:08.
Oh.
That was my prediction.
Okay.
I didn't want to tell you because I didn't want to put pressure on you. But I thought you would be in that ballpark.
Okay.
And you were in that, but I mean, bloody hell, you were in that ballpark. 3:11's in the ballpark, right?
I don't know, is it? I hope it's...
Of course it is, yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
Now, this isn't like I'm disappointed you didn't go 3:08, because with marathons, we all know how it is. You can go 3:08, you can go 3:08:30, you can go 3:38.
Yeah.
There's just, you can get that day when your legs don't work and you get mile 18 detonation. All just goes absolutely Pete Tong. So talk us through the race. Come on, how did the whole thing, how did it play out for you?
So at the very beginning, I sort of looked at my watch and I thought, oh, geez, not going fast enough here. So the first mile would have been probably around, I don't know, 7:50. I don't know, maybe starting off at like 7:45, and I thought, oh, goodness, I've got quite a lot more. I need to speed up a little bit here. And then I had written on one hand, I had be brave, be committed. And on the other hand, I had slightly stronger, don't be rubbish.
We can't say the actual word. It was a 4-letter word, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Don't be rubbish in 4 letters.
So don't be rubbish. And I put 7.
You gave that to George Banks, I believe.
Yes. Thank you, George, for that one. And I had 7:07 written on my finger because I knew that's like, right, I've got to try to stick to 7:07 minute miles. And pretty much I'd say I did, once I got into the pacing, I was around 7:06, 7:07. And then I mean, it felt hard from the beginning, but then someone else had said to me, if it's hurting, then you're doing well. Essentially was what he was saying. It means you're actually trying.
Nice. I like that. Yeah. That's a good mantra to have in your head in a marathon.
Yeah.
Because it is going to hurt,
exactly,
isn't it?
He said, so, expect it to hurt. If it's not hurting, you're not trying hard enough. So I was thinking, okay, this is really going to be quite horrific. Up until there was a big out and back, and up until the out, that was 15K then, and I was feeling fine. And when I turned, then I saw the 3:15 paces weren't that far behind me. But actually, to be honest, we'll probably go around the houses here slightly. At the very beginning, it took me a few minutes to pass the 3:30 paces. So I really did start.
So you were way back, were you?
Too far back, yeah.
Yeah.
I should have started with the 3:15 paces. But anyway, error. We learn from these things, don't we?
You muppet.
Yeah, so I started behind them. And then I had to overtake the 3:15 paces as well. And then, I think at halfway, I felt fine. I thought, right, come on, H. The longest, tough run you did was 12 miles. So you only have to do that plus one extra little bonus mile. Come on, you can do this. And I probably by that point, the minute miles had gone down to 7:09. But I was like, that's still fine. Then you got to kilometre 26, and I was like, oh, I so wish that was miles. That would be amazing. There was one point where you ran so like all the way down the other end of Malaga, essentially, like out by this stadium. You had to do a blooming lap of the track in the middle of a marathon.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
that was pointless. Honestly, that was horrible. It's like an empty stadium, and they just made you run around the track of it and out the other side. um, and at that point, I was then running with, I'd say, a group of sort of 4 or 5 of us for probably a few miles, which was really helpful. There was one guy from, he was something like Steel City Runners, so it must be, or Striders, must be a running club in Sheffield.
Yeah, that's
And I
right.
said to him, I said, we're going to get to the finish. He said, look, we're on for 3:10 pace, so yeah, we will. Um, so I probably ran with him for a couple of miles. Didn't talk, but just um, we just sort of side by side. And I could see my watch by this point was probably on 7:10, 7:11, and I'm thinking, how do you call that back? I am really
Yeah.
trying here. Um, Mile 21, I looked at my watch and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, still got 5 blooming miles to go. This is really quite horrible now. Um, and my clock just, I guess, then went to 7:11 and 7:12. And I was working really, really hard. I passed 1 or 2 women, and then I could see one in the, like, a little bit further ahead. And I was like, right, come on, catch her. That's your target now. And probably with about 2 miles to go, I caught her. But then she came back past me, finished a few seconds ahead of me. And by the end, I looked at my watch and it said 7:15. So I had slowed down, but that was as slow as it got, if that makes sense.
Good for you,
So
yeah.
7:15, I finished on. It was actually 26.4 miles according to my watch.
26.4.
Yeah.
That's
See, why,
outrageous.
honestly, why did they put the extra bit of track in? Why did they put the loop of,
Yeah, exactly 400 meters
yeah,
long.
or the
Son of a gun.
the finishing straight was like the longest finishing straight. You know, have you ever done the Great North Run,
Yeah.
right? And you come down to the seafront and you've still
Oh,
got about a
yeah,
mile
down
to
that
go.
steep hill.
It was like that.
That's hideous, isn't it?
Oh, and you could see these blooming, arches, and you're thinking, oh, that must be the finish. No, you went under about 3 before you finally got to the finish.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But
Oh,
there
man.
you go. So that was
That's
it. And I
dreadful.
crossed the line, and this girl said, "Are you okay?" And I thought, "Oh, am I okay? I don't know." And I was thinking, I know I'm actually going to puke. I didn't. Then I was okay, but I felt a little bit sick. Um, and yeah, that was my marathon of Malaga.
And
Mm,
I've got the results here in front of me on the computer.
yeah,
Did you know you were,
ninth.
well, apparently on the chip timing, you were eighth.
You
You were
see?
eighth woman.
You see?
Eighth woman and fourth senior female, whatever that means. Does it mean you got to draw your pension
It means
sometime
it
soon?
means probably that I got beaten by like a 50-year-old and a 60-year-old. A couple of
Ladies,
pro women.
ladies over 30,
Yeah,
let's say.
yeah.
Good for you though, mate. Fourth in age group and eighth overall and big international marathon. That's super duper.
Thanks. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now I'm gonna chill the heck out for a few weeks.
Yeah, you need
That
to.
is my plan.
The thing with marathons is when the markers are in
Oh
kilometers,
God,
there's so many of them,
it's
but they're
horrible.
so far apart. Yeah, they're so far apart. It's like you'd rather have them in miles than not be. London's great because like every mile is a big thing over the road, and there's balloons and there's a clock, and like you could do the whole thing without needing a watch, couldn't you? And
Yeah.
know exactly where you are. It's awesome. None of this fancy European nonsense
Well, they
kilometers.
had little
So
messages on each one saying things like, it's probably hurting now. You're like, yes,
oh,
it blooming
good,
well
yeah,
is.
good for you. Thanks for that,
Yeah.
man. That's what we needed.
Yeah. Well done.
Reminding is probably hurting. You don't say.
I tell you
You
though.
should have changed your trainers 4 weeks ago. Bet you wish you tested that gel in training.
Oh, now here we go. So I did take gels because I had tried to train with them, and I'm not the biggest fan of gels, and I've never really gone near them. But I
Yeah,
managed to get myself onto them over the past month or so for the longer runs, and but I realised on one of the long runs I couldn't open it, so I thought, right, well, I'm not doing that because that will really annoy me. So I emptied them out
yeah.
into a. Have you got a Camelback?
Yep.
Yeah, so it's like really mini versions of a Camelback, that kind of material. So it's like a squashable
Okay.
bottle. Um,
Oh, clever.
yeah, and I think it's like a Scott fuel belt, which put these in. But I was kind, I lent the fuel belt to someone else who was also
Oh,
running. But I
nice.
carried the little squashable bottles, and I put 3 or 4 gels in each one, and then topped it up with a little bit of water. So it meant I was carrying something, but actually I
Yeah.
didn't find it too annoying until you had to get bottles of water with lids on at the aid stations.
Oh, good work, guys. They've really thought this one through, haven't they?
Like,
Water with lids
what the
on.
hell?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a little bit tricky.
That's the one thing that London do badly is they give out bottles of water that have got, I don't know, 300 millilitres in,
Yeah,
and everybody grabs a bottle, takes a swig, and
yeah,
drops it on the
yeah,
road. And it's like, how many times you get wet feet because the water grenade goes off as some
yeah,
guy drops, or they throw it across the road and it bounces past your legs.
yeah.
And oh, we've got to get into London. Got to do that again. Got to. It was awesome. You fired me up, Helen.
Do it, do it.
Oh, you fired me up. You'll be firing everybody else up for it as well.
Get on it.
There's going to be a raffle at the KTC Club Do. We've got a ticket for the London Marathon, Helen.
So I hear.
We're raffling it
I think
off.
it's a great idea. I think
I'm going in.
as
I'm going in
atmospheres
heavy and hard.
go, London cannot be beaten on a marathon.
Yeah,
I don't think. And I remember that
yeah.
first time I did it, so 2004, and around mile 16, 17, 18, there were no crowds at all. And then 4 years later, when I did it again, I don't even remember mile 16 or 17 or 18 because it just felt like there was a wall of crowd from
Yeah,
the very beginning for 26.2 miles straight, people everywhere.
yeah, I totally agree. When I did it, it was 3 people deep. All that bit through the Isle of Dogs where it's always looked desolate on the television.
Yeah,
It was 2, 3 people deep. People were hanging out of pub windows,
yeah,
and it's like the whole town gets drunk at 9 o'clock in the morning. Eat your heart out, Roth. It's awesome, isn't it?
yeah. That was one thing about Malaga when we got up on Sunday morning to go down to the start. So it started at 8:30. So we left our flat where we were staying at 7:30, and we were walking through this little square. And being Spain, there were still people walking home after their night out,
Still people out.
eating like pizza and stuff, and you're thinking, oh
Yeah,
goodness.
it's like racing in Blackpool.
Yeah,
Everyone's doing the walk of shame along the prom. If you do any of the Blackpool Marathon, half marathon, some joker always like hares along next to you and then is sick in the gutter. It's a
oh.
rite of passage as an endurance athlete.
Oh, there you go. I would recommend though, if anyone did want a very, very late season marathon where you can probably run in vest top and shorts. It's a very flat course, good organisation, really easy to get to Malaga, isn't it? And it's not stupidly expensive either to enter. And of course, there's always the bonus of being able to feast on tapas and vino tinto afterwards. Then do consider
Did
Malaga.
you indulge a little
We
afterwards?
spent 5 hours on a little tapas tour, our own tapas tour.
Did you
Yeah, it
really?
was brilliant.
Man, you got a stronger stomach than me.
It was great. We had tuna. We
Oh,
had
I feel jippy
tortilla.
just thinking about it.
It was awesome. And clearly we then had paella after our tapas.
Oh man,
Yeah.
right. Come on, I've got to let you go. You've got to be up early in the morning to get to work.
Yep. Can't wait.
By early, I mean 2 hours before early even wakes up. Crazy stuff. Right, so I'll tie this up, I think, Helen, after I've done the interview today with the lovely Susie Cheetham. We got her on a couple of weeks ago with a bit of an interview after an amazing performance over in Kona.
Love
So we're
it.
going to have an interview with her now. Thanks for coming on, Hells.
Pleasure. Absolute pleasure. We will catch up again next week. Oh, and Rob, before I go, last week we heard about sports massage.
Oh, yes.
Well, Paul obviously listened to our podcast, and
Right.
he heard that you were a complete and utter wimp.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah, yeah.
he's suggested that maybe you go and have one of his massages and really see if you are a
Really?
wimp. Yeah.
Do you know, he sent me a message as well, and this is really funny because he said, there's a sports massage trick here. I made sure, I shouldn't say this because maybe his missus is listening. I made sure the first time I gave my missus a massage, it really hurt. So she never asked for one again. And I wonder if that's what Lindsay did.
You see?
She'd get her elbow in the Achilles on purpose and think, right, this son of a so-and-so's never having another one of me. Maybe I shall.
Honestly, I think it'd be a good test to see how much of a wimp.
I needed it, Helen. I did my first long run in, I don't know how long, the other day,
Yeah.
Friday, after Xander's birthday party. I ran back from Knutsford. So 90-minute run. I was a write-off the next day. I was good for nothing.
Honestly, go and see Paul. It's my top tip.
Yeah. I think maybe I need to invest in the old legs.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah. Okay, right. Cheers, mate. We're going to hand us over now to our interview with the lovely Susie Cheetham. Susie Cheetham, welcome to the Cup of Triathlon podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate the fact that we've been trying to hook this interview up for a while, and it's now pretty late at night, and I'm sure you're absolutely exhausted from training, and yet you're still on the phone talking to us and our listeners. So yeah, I really appreciate it.
Oh no, it's a pleasure to be on.
Oh, jolly good. Well, look, it's amazing to be able to get to talk to you because you're like the unsung hero of the year, and all of a sudden I think people feel as though you're like the overnight sensation that, of course, has taken 5 years of hard work in the background for you to actually put together. So your 6th place at Kona is probably how most people have you've come to their attention recently. So let's start by talking about that. Really, how was your Kona experience?
Oh, it was amazing. I look back really fondly on the whole experience. Really, I went there really excited to race, but with expectations of my own. I wasn't particularly vocal on them, but I was confident that I was in the best shape that I have ever been in. So as long as I performed well on race day, I was going to be happy with the end result. Whether it was top 20 or top 30, top 10 or 6th as it happened. So yeah, no,
let's say that again. That's awesome. 6th at Kona when you did. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, no, I was really pleased, and I had a good day, and really happy that all the sacrifices that I took paid off, and I could actually perform where it mattered.
Yeah, well, you had I've got the results up in front of me, and the thing that stands out is, firstly, everybody says it was an incredibly hot, difficult, you got the full-on Kona experience with mental heat and humidity, didn't you? And yet you still put together an amazing run. You ran just a shade under 3:07 with a 3:06:55, which puts you either like 3rd, I think, fastest run of the day, but within a handful of seconds of being the fastest run of the day. So who knows what that might be on a day when the weather's a little bit kinder. Was that, obviously you're from a running background originally, and you've obviously had a lot of confidence in your running, but going into Kona as your first race, obviously it's a complete lottery, and history's littered with stories of people who go there as a big shot like Chris McCormack and fail and fail and fail to put a performance together for years on end. So to run 3:06 off the bike there, were you happy with that? Did it represent what you think you could have done, or was it a case of you were just going out there to see what the day brought you, really?
If you said to me before the race, you're going to run a 3:06, I would have been really disappointed. I was in really good run shape, and I was really confident in my run ability. And I think that probably reflects in my race throughout the day. I was quite conservative on the bike because, I had a conversation with a friend before the race, and he said, whatever you do, make sure you get off the bike being able to use your run. If you overbike, it doesn't matter that you're a good runner. You won't be able to run well. So I was really confident that I could pull off a good run. But then when I got off the bike, feeling like I had been sensible, I looked at my watch, and I wasn't running fast at all. I've done 2 Ironmans before, and I've got off the bike feeling really good. And I didn't feel good. I didn't feel like I was flowing nicely. I didn't feel like I wasn't running fast. Um, but I just kept on sort of pushing away. And then I realized actually, because of the heat, nobody was really running that well, and I was gaining on quite a lot of girls. Um, so I suppose I took confidence in that, and confidence in the fact that I knew I am one of the best runners. That I could pick off at least a few girls. And at that point, I think I came off the bike in 16th. So my first goal was really to make it up to 10th, and then see where it went from there. So yeah, I mean, on face value, if you'd said 306, I would have been disappointed. But in hindsight, it was, there was a few of us that ran 306, but none of the girls went faster than 306, which I think really does reflect how harsh the conditions were.
Yeah. And is that how it felt when you were running? Was it one of those just like you couldn't believe how hot and humid it was?
Yeah, I mean, I went out 2 weeks before, so I knew it was going to be hot. And actually, I didn't know any differently. I mean, I got told afterwards that it was, I think, the hottest Kona in 8 or 10 years.
Wow.
So I mean, it was hot, and I suffered, and everyone suffered. But I didn't think, okay, this must be the hottest it's been in so long, because I expected it to be hot. Everyone said how horrendous Kona was because it's so hot. So I didn't really know to expect any different. So I mean, going back next year, I'd like to think maybe it might be a little bit cooler. But then again, I think I did well in the heat. So maybe the heat's
very
good for
much
me.
so. Have you got a history of going well in the heat?
I don't really know. Quite honestly, I don't know.
Clearly, you had a good day in the heat on this day, didn't you?
I
Certainly
mean,
relative to everybody else.
the other races that I've done in the heat, I mean, I did 70.3 world champs in Austria, and that was a hot day because
Yeah.
we started so late in the day. I think it went up to well above 30, like mid 30s even, I think. So that was really hot, and I took confidence that actually, I did well there in the heat. But it doesn't have, and there's a couple of other races that I've done, like South Africa 70.3 and South Africa Ironman, where I've raced well, but it's not Kona, and it's not the same because it's hot, but it doesn't have the humidity like Kona does. And I've genuinely never done any exercise in conditions like that, where you literally step out the door and you'd come back from a bike ride and it's like you've been swimming. And
Yeah.
my first ride was a real shock to me. Like I got back into the car after my ride, and I was really surprised. I didn't expect that, to be honest.
Yes, it's a combination of the heat and the humidity over there that's really, it feels almost toxic at times, doesn't it? That you just feel like I have to get out of the sun now and find some shade.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine, I've told a few people I was out there years ago when I was windsurfing, and it's hot to windsurf. There are times when you come in off the water and you think I've just got to get in the shade for a while.
Yeah.
So what it must be like trying to run along the Queen K in those conditions, it's just mind blowing. And your power meter stopped working during the race as well. Is that right?
Yeah, it was a weird one actually, because it's always worked for me before, and I'd been training on it for the 2 weeks. I could understand if it was just when I got off the plane and something had been bumped, but I was training on it 2 weeks before, fine. Working off numbers for the first time. It was going to be my first Ironman with power. And I jumped on my bike, and it was reading 0, which I figured probably wasn't true. And I mean, my other 2 Ironmans, I've biked off feel anyway. But I didn't have heart rate or power, so I was a little bit nervous of going too hard. But I was on my own pretty much the whole way, so it was much easier just to go off my own feel of the race and feel of
so at least it wasn't a situation you hadn't experienced before, I suppose. It sounds like you stayed pretty cool and level-headed all the way through as well. Do you think that played a part in it?
Yeah, I think quite a big part actually. I think it's the biggest race of the year for any long distance athlete, and I I think it's very easy to get swept along, and think that you can pull out a bike that you even if you haven't been training on those numbers, to pull out a bike that's beyond your
Yeah,
ability.
chase the magic numbers on race day kind
And
of thing.
yeah, and you can just see it. You can see it on the run. I mean, I've watched it. I got into triathlon in sort of 2011, 2012, and I've watched it ever since. And you see every year just people just melting on the run. So yeah, I think being level-headed and calm played into my hands a little bit.
Yeah. Now you mentioned the 70.3 World Championships a minute ago, and I wanted to talk to you about that because, again, looking over the results there, Helen actually tipped you before Kona because she remembered your performance at the 70.3 Worlds, and she said, Susie Cheetham, if she hadn't got that drafting penalty or the blocking penalty on the bike, she'd have been up there in like fourth place without that. So you obviously, you had a fantastic result there. Your run again was probably second or third fastest in the field that day. But what happened with this penalty that you got given on the bike?
It was a little bit of a funny one. So it was right at the end of the bike. I think I had like 5Ks left. And I went to overtake one of the other girls, and there was no one else around. It was just a girl in front of me, so there was no one I could have been drafting off apart from the girl I was overtaking. So it was, I mean, it definitely wasn't a drafting penalty. I went to overtake her and I pulled in too soon, and they said that that was dangerous riding.
Really?
And that was a 5-minute penalty. So I didn't. I mean, I've taken it, and there's
It's one of
nothing.
those weird things
There's nothing
that
you can do in hindsight, and that's the nature of Ironman, I think. But
it sounds like a lot of people got strange penalties that day. We had the age grouper Chris. Oh my God, my mind's gone completely blank. Chris Standage on a couple
okay,
of weeks ago,
yeah,
and he was leading the age group race, and he said there was a bunch of them riding along and had been riding along sort of in a legal distance for ages, and the guy just pulled up alongside him and gave him a penalty. And he was
yeah,
like, there's 8 of us, we're all the same distance apart. He said I
yeah.
wasn't doing anything different. It was just a random. Isn't that strange though?
Yeah, I mean, I know that one of the other pro guys got exactly the same. Do you know Jesse Thomas? I think he got the same
Yeah,
same penalty for the
yeah.
same thing, and I think he tried to appeal it, and I think,
Oh no, he was heartbroken, wasn't he?
mm,
Because we ended up talking to him. He came over and raced Ironman Wales, didn't he? And had a crack
yeah,
at that
yeah,
just because he
exactly,
thought,
yeah,
I'm in Europe, I may as well go and have
yeah,
another
exactly, yeah,
race. Oh wow, oh that's interesting.
yeah. So it's a
So I
shame,
mean,
but to be honest, I mean, I got over it quite quickly, and
you were still seventh, right? And even with
yeah,
that
I took confidence
storming
in the
run off the
fact.
bike,
Yeah, I took confidence in the fact that, um, I don't think you can ever say a penalty is worth 5 minutes of time on your final result, because it's not. Because I was standing around for 5 minutes recovering, which is actually quite nice to go into a run feeling a little bit fresher. So it's
oh,
not a
that's
true.
very honourable of you. I'd be knocking 5 minutes off my time, no question.
So it's not. I don't think it's a true 5 minutes. But I took confidence in the fact that even if I took 4 minutes off, it would be, it'd be a good. It would have been a good, my best result that I've had, and took confidence in the fact that I was probably in the best shape that I've ever been in. So
Yeah. Yeah. Now let's go back a little bit and let's talk about. I always like to talk to people about how they actually got into triathlon in the first place and what their background is, whether they were a swimmer or a biker or a runner. So going back to your school days, what was your sporting background like?
well, I definitely wasn't a swimmer.
You say that now because to you you've been on this like mission to improve, but to me sitting here looking at the results, you're clearly a very good swimmer now. So it's only in your head it feels like you're not a good swimmer anymore, Susie.
I've improved a lot. Yeah, no, I came from a running background. So I started running when I was, I think, 13, and it was sort of, I trained once a week, and um, yeah, I really loved running, and I think I started getting quite good at running when I was about 16 or 17, and there was a guy I fancied that I was running with, and it meant that I went from running once a week to about 4 times a week. So, and then suddenly I had a massive improvement in my running, and then I realised I could actually be quite good.
Brilliant. So you were sort of a track runner, is that right? You were sort of 1500 meter and 3K track runner at English school standard.
Yeah, so I think English schools, so that would be sort of 17 and 18. I got I think silver medal in 1500 when I was sort of yeah, it must have been 17, and then 18 last year of school I won the 3000 meters on the track. And then after school, sort of during university, I sort of stepped up to 5,000 meters and carried on doing the cross country in the winter. But I just I will always run, and I love running so much. But I began to not love it as much because I was getting injured so much. And I just never.
I know that was going to be my question. Did you end up moving toward triathlon because of like the classic runner's injuries kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was always a little bit frustrated that I didn't feel like I was achieving what I felt I could. And I mean, I suppose it coincided with starting a proper job and my career, and I sort of put running on the back burner. And at the same time, my husband was doing a little bit of triathlon, and he was doing I think he was doing Ironman Austria, or one. He's done a few Ironmans, and I started training with him on the bike. Just to, I mean, I wouldn't even say training. I was just sort of tagging along just so I could spend some time with him. And I just
because otherwise you'd never see him.
Yeah, absolutely. I just thought it was ridiculous. Like I had been training at quite a competitive level. I had run for Great Britain, and I was training probably 2 hours a day max, and he was out on the bike for 6 hours, and then he'd come home and he'd go for a run afterwards. And I just thought it was this crazy sport where you can't do anything else but just train. But I got, I started improving on the bike, and he said maybe you should do a triathlon, and then I did Antwerp 70.3. And yeah, I suppose from there I've got better and better.
And obviously all that aerobic fitness and running's carried over, because you very graciously haven't mentioned the fact you were second at the 70.3 Antwerp, weren't you? And then finished fifth at Ironman 70.3 UK and fifth at South Africa 70.3 in the same year. So you must have been thinking, actually, there's something good going on here. I've got a bit of potential here.
Yeah, and I mean that year was just a bit of an experiment, really. And I mean, I realised I must have some kind of talent for it, and I was surprised that I could effectively. I was managing the swim during that time, and I never thought of doing triathlon because I looked at. Because I was a shorter distance runner, I looked at the Olympic distance triathlon, and they were swimming ridiculous times. So I never even considered triathlon. But when I was sort of just messing around, I did Antwerp. I realised that actually comparing my times to the top girls, actually, I hadn't done much swimming at all, and I wasn't embarrassing myself in the swim too much.
Yeah. And then obviously you've had to go on a mission recently to really improve your swimming, culminating in, even though you're saying yourself you don't feel like you're a sort of real swimmer yet, in inverted commas, but you're less than 2 minutes down on swimmers like Rachel Joyce and Daniela Reef at Kona. It's a minute and a half down on them. So that's actually really, really good swimming. And I'm just wondering what sort of training volume have you had to do over the last few years to get your swim to be within a minute and a half of the best swimmers in the world, or the best triathletes in the world, anyway?
Yeah, I mean, I don't do mega volume in the swim at all. To be honest, I think it just clicked. I improved at the beginning of this year in 2015. I don't think I'm that much better now. But I think it's just clicked. in my last two races, and it's all come together. I mean, I don't. I'm not one of these people that does 5K sets every swim. I swim 4 to 5 times a week. I think a big difference for me this year has been I've moved down to Bath. My husband's in the army, so we move every 2 years. And quite lucky for me, his latest posting is just outside Bath. So it means I'm training in the 50-meter pool up at the university with Mark Threlfall and his coaching group there. And I think he's helped me improve my swim a fair bit just by joining in with his sessions.
Pretty lucky posting to be right in the doorstep of firstly world-class facilities and then a world-class squad with a world-class coach as well. You must have been delighted when you found out about that posting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we could have been anywhere, and yeah. I mean, there was one potentially better one. There was the option of Cyprus, which looking now outside at the weather, it might have been a nicer one for this time of the year. But no, I think Bath is probably a close second.
Well, what you need is 2 years with Mark in Bath, and then move out to Cyprus for some warm weather training.
Yeah. I think
that's when the years-long domination of Kona can really take on.
Yeah.
When you can get out and ride all winter.
That would be nice.
So I really want to ask you about your sort of first step up to racing Ironman, because I know I've read a couple of articles where you've been talking about that, and I think it's a great story. Can you tell us about Barcelona in 2014 and the process that led to you deciding you were going to have a crack at Ironman in the first place? Because despite the fact you're obviously racing at a very high level and you're incredibly fit, it sounds like some of the mental things you went through are very similar to any standard age grouper who's having a go at Ironman for the first time.
Yeah, I think the mental processes pros go through in any race, probably exactly the same as any age grouper. I don't think it's any different. I think there's this perception that pros somehow manage everything in their stride and are completely competent all the time and incredibly strong, and that's not always the case. And I think so I decided to do Ironman Barcelona at the end of last year and at the end of 2014, just to see if I could really do it Ironman and if I was any good. And I mean, I did the season. I did the season as sort of my focus was on 70.3 World Champs, and after 70.3 World Champs, I decided, okay, I'm definitely going to do Barcelona, and I think there was about 4 weeks in between, so I could, I got some panic training in, did a few more long rides.
That's what my wife calls it. She used to call it panic revision, and then when I go out and do a long ride, she's like, "Oh yeah, panic training, are you?"
Exactly.
That's great.
Yeah, but I was. I mean, part of the reason I decided to do it, I'd gone part-time at work halfway through 2014, and I'd always said I would never do an Ironman and try and compete with the other professional girls as long as I was working full time, because I struggled enough as it was trying to do 70.3s that way. I was training and working crazy hours, and I certainly don't think it was good for me. But when I decided to do Ironman Barcelona, I think I went through the mental process of any athlete, whether it's someone training to complete an Ironman, somebody that's an elite age grouper, or any other pro doing it for the first time. I think it's really intimidating. It's a really long way. It's a stupidly long way. And
really is,
I didn't. I was really scared about doing it. I found it really intimidating.
That's brilliant to hear. I think there's lots of people sitting around listening and going, "Oh, it's amazing that you feel the same way that we do." But there's no reason you wouldn't, right? Just because you're fast doesn't mean that the distance is any less far.
Yeah, I think it hurts everyone just as much. I don't think it's any different.
Yeah, I think you're dead right with that one. So you went into Ironman Barcelona, and how did that race play out for you, starting with the swim? How did that go?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have an amazing swim. It was a funny one because the day started with the most horrendous storm, like thunder and lightning and flash flooding. And anyone that did that race will laugh now because it was ridiculous. There was within about 20 minutes in the streets walking down to transition to bike transition. Within 20 minutes, the water had got up to my knees in some parts of the road.
Really?
Yeah, it was crazy, and it was lightning, thunder, and I was pretty convinced they were going to certainly delay it or cancel it, because they couldn't have people in the sea with lightning like that. But anyway, went about it normally, and what a great one to choose for my first Ironman. And then went to the swim start, and I think they ended up delaying it by an hour or an hour and a half or something. But we swam, and it was quite rough conditions. My swim wasn't great. It seemed like it went on forever, and I was like, "Oh, I'm in for a long day here." And the bike, it was fine. I think, funnily enough, with Barcelona, there just wasn't anything really that happened to me that was that eventful. I felt like I was running quite slow in the run, which I wasn't running the fastest, and there was nothing really that was that noteworthy. I mean, I learned a lot from it. I learned that I can take Coke and not in the run and not bonk later on, and learned some things that work for me, and it's valuable experience, I think, for my next Ironman in South Africa. But I think I think you learn something every Ironman, which is why you've got women racing, right? And if you look at Natasha Badman, she's still smashing out some amazing Ironmans at mid-40s.
She's incredible, isn't she? I think she's 48 this year.
Is she?
We were talking about her the other day, and it's just like, it's obscene how fast she's still going.
It's incredible.
But it is really a sport that seems to, I think we're conditioned as children to think that sporting careers end in your early 30s because we see the only professionals that are ever on TV, like the footballers and rugby players, right? Their careers end in their early 30s. And you come to a sport that, like ultra distance triathlon or running or cycling or whatever, and you genuinely see people getting better and better all the way through the 40s, as long as they can stay injury free and have the opportunity to train consistently. So I think we're going to see, this generation of athletes, if they continue to move forward and keep on wanting to do the work, I think people can keep getting better for years and years and years. It's just a case of, can we do the work for that extended period of time, I think.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think it also depends how much you've abused your body throughout your career. Like if you started doing Ironmans young, I think you have a limited amount of years potentially. I don't know. It's like everything. It's a personal thing. Some people will be better into their 40s than others, I'm sure.
Yeah. Torsten sent me through a list of races for, I think it's for Cozumel, and it's got a list of all the athletes and what races they've done.
Yeah.
And some of the guys on there have done, 5 or 6 Ironmans a year for the last 6 to 8 years. And you look at this list of results and you go, that can't be right. There's like 45 Ironmans on this list. But that's what people seem to do over an 8-year period sometimes. So it'll be interesting to track these guys as they get older and see what effect it has had on the bodies.
Yeah, I don't think I'm in the fortunate position. I'm in the fortunate position now where I've got quite a lot of points for Kona next year. So I don't have to race lots next year. But even qualifying in my first year for Kona, I only raced effectively. I did Barcelona in October, South Africa in April, and that was enough with some 70.3 world champs points and some other 70.3 races to qualify me. So I only raced effectively 2 to qualify, and then Kona itself. And I don't think I'll do more than that in a year.
Obviously you've got these points to carry over from Kona now, and I was going to ask, what do you think your plans are over the coming year? Will you race more than one other Ironman?
Obviously I've got to race one. I think it's going to be Ironman South Africa. I'm doing 70.3 South Africa in January. And then I am coming home, but I think I'm going to go back out and do Ironman South Africa. I mean, I'd like to do a different one, because just to see somewhere new.
Yeah.
But at the same time, my husband's family are all in South Africa, so it makes it a really easy one for me to do. And yeah, I mean, it's a really good race as well. It's going to be interesting what happens to the field, because I think it will actually attract quite a lot more pros because of Melbourne being cancelled.
Yeah.
And I think the replacement for Melbourne is now Cairns, but that's not until June. So I think if, like I was last year, I was trying to get points early on, and that's why I did Ironman South Africa. But there was also Ironman Melbourne at the same time. But because there's not that this year, I think quite a lot of the girls will go to South Africa. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, it might change the dynamics of the year for everybody, really, because June's a lot later on than March, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Now, you've mentioned a few times your husband, who's also your coach, Rob. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about the importance of coaching in your development as an athlete?
Yeah, so I mean, I suppose it's been a natural progression, and sort of our relationship as sort of coach athlete has evolved. We never intended for him to necessarily coach me, but he's offered me quite a lot in terms of my development as an athlete. He comes from South Africa. He's a great swimmer and swim teacher, and he's really got me to the point where he's an excellent swim coach for getting somebody that effectively is doggy paddling up to quite a competitive standard, and he did that for me quite quickly. I think
now that's a really interesting story. The fact that you really did come from the background of essentially being a non-swimmer, didn't you? And got to
absolutely.
be competitive at 70.3 really quickly.
Yeah.
What advice do you think you would pass on to people who are in a similar position and who want to get good at swimming crawl? What were a couple of tips that worked for you along the way?
I think get somebody who knows what they're talking about quite early on. I was lucky because it was on my doorstep. But Rob always says that, because he's done it with a few different people, getting them up from non-swimmers to a good level. And I think he's always said the easiest people to do that to are people that haven't swam before, so they don't have bad habits. So I'd say if you're starting out and you are a doggy paddler and you've just, swam on holiday and sort of not done any competitive swimming, I would get someone to help you straight away so you don't develop those bad habits and they're not ingrained in your stroke. And I think that's where I was quite fortunate. Like I didn't, I had Rob from the beginning, so it did in a sense make it easier that I was a complete novice.
And how does the coaching work on a day-to-day basis? Is Rob writing out your training plans and telling you what to do, or is it how it started and it's now kind of evolved? And I'd imagine you know your body pretty well now after all these years.
Yeah, I mean, because we obviously live together, it's quite handy. I mean, I'd say Rob does more of the strategic stuff, so the bigger picture, which is quite good when you're tired and you're sort of looking at you're looking at the nitty gritty and looking at session by session, but he's looking at the bigger picture. He sets me out. I'd say usually when I'm in a big training block, he'll set me out. What my training blocks are going to be like leading into a race, and he brings that structure. And he will then give me, say, like 3 or 4 key sessions a week that I have to do, and this is what he wants me to do in them. Then effectively I sort of fill in a few gaps, and then we sort of, I suppose, chat about it and see where he thinks I'm going wrong, or where I don't agree with what he's put on the training structure, and then somewhere in
And
between.
then who wins?
Yeah, somewhere in
who
between,
wins?
we come to a compromise in something that looks like a training plan. So I mean, it's really, and obviously I always win.
It sounds like the old Brian Clough quote where he says, "Well, when the boys disagree with me, we chat about it for a while and we hear each other's opinions, and then they do what I tell them."
Yeah, no, it's funny.
So
We have had a few
you're very much in
arguments.
charge.
We've had a few arguments over training, but we always managed to get there in the end. But yeah, it's really useful having someone around that knows me and knows how I react to training, and also pushes me to go out the door when I have to, but then stops me from going out of the door when, if I go out the door, I'm going to break myself. So it's
Yeah,
really good to
even
have
more
that
important.
that sort of
Yeah.
that somebody that knows your body as well as you do, but then isn't sort of so involved that they don't have that.
That's probably the biggest key to all of it, isn't it? Is saying no to people when they really want to go out and do something, and just say to them, actually, nah, you're not doing that today.
Yeah,
Can be the real key.
yeah.
So listen, talk to us about, obviously now things will change for you, having been in the top 10 at Kona and being sixth at Kona. I mean, that's nearly top 5. Things will change in terms of visibility in front of sponsors, in terms of your profile. How do you see the next year playing out in terms of sort of you making a living as a triathlete and making the sort of jump from, you've worked full time, you worked part time, and you've sort of dipped your toe in there just being a full-time athlete for this last year. Now I suppose it's all in. You've seen what you can do when you have a year to train full time. How difficult is it going to be for you to sort of make a living as a triathlete over the next year?
Well, I went full time in just after Ironman South Africa, so in a sort of, I think it was in about May time this year. So I had,
so you've only been like 6 months in so far, I guess.
I had from May till Kona to train full time, and I was quite fortunate because the company that I worked for were good to me, and it was a big step for me to effectively go pro in May and go full time and put all my eggs in one basket. And I had always been quite scared of doing that, partly for financial reasons, but also, I'm sort of saying goodbye to my career and putting it on hold for who knows how long, and whether it's a couple of years or more. So I was really nervous about doing that, but I think going out to Kona has made me realize that in terms of making a living out of triathlon, all the sponsors are there, and if you do well in Kona, I think it does make it a lot easier. I'm talking to sponsors at the moment, and I'm still finalizing some details, but I will hopefully be in a position where I can make a living out of it next year.
Secret squirrel. There's nothing getting given away here at all. Understandably, if there's contracts to be signed still, I'll be watching this with great interest, though, to see who's signed you up for the coming season. Well, that's been great. Listen, thanks ever so much for coming on and giving us your time. It's been fascinating to talk to you, and I'm really looking forward to watching how the next year or two of results unfold for you. One last question for you. How do you think, if you have your ideal day at Kona next year, how do you think that's going to play out? Where will you put yourself in the sort of, I think I could do this if everything went perfectly?
I think with another year of training behind me, I think I should be aiming for the top 5. I think there's no reason to, having come sixth, I should definitely be aiming for the top 5. To try and shoot above that, I think is probably a little bit too much at this stage.
It's down to the gods of Hawaii, isn't it?
Yeah, you look at the history of Kona, and it's fantastic. I'm really happy that I came sixth, but you see people that had a great result in their first year or had a great result in their second year, whenever it might be, but then the next year they come back and have an absolute disaster. So I'm well aware that, like you say, the Kona gods could perhaps treat me slightly differently next year, and I could completely bomb out. So I think I've got to go for a top 5 and try and improve on this year. I mean, I'm a professional athlete, so I'm competitive. I want to do better than I did last year, but I think I'd be very happy with that. If I could go back and do better than I did last year, I'd be exceptionally happy.
Fantastic. Well, listen, thank you ever so much again for your time. I hope we can have you back on the show again sometime next year, and maybe, who knows, we can be hearing about the even more successful race at Kona 2016, hey?
Oh, I hope so. That would be nice.
Susie, thank you very much, and we'll speak to you again soon.
Thanks, Rob. Cheers.
And that just about wraps up today's episode. The great interview there. Just a couple of final words from our sponsors. Again, we've got some discount codes for you if you're looking to pick up a few bits and bobs for next season. If you use the code COT10 over at raceforce.co.uk, you'll be able to get yourself 10% off one of their Bike Bus or Bike Bus Pro tours. And we've also got 2 places remaining on the Oxygen Addict Total Tri Training Camp out in Fuerteventura in Playita, which is in February. So the details for that are up on the Oxygen Addict website. We've got 2 places left there for anyone who is looking for a little bit of winter sun and some serious hard training, either getting killed by Chris Standage or mellowly bimbling along at the back with me, one or the other. And until next week, really, that's all we've got for you. So thanks very much for listening. We really appreciate you tuning in every week. If any of you guys like to support the show, you can go over to the website and you can click on the old patrons button and donate £2 a month to help support the show. If you're looking to pick up anything from myprotein.com, you can use the code OxygenAddict8 for 8% off at checkout, or if you're a new customer, OxygenAddict15 will get you 15% off at checkout. Helen is obviously not on this part of the call, but she was Helen Murray. I'm Coach Rob Wilby, and you've been listening to the Cup of Triathlon podcast. Speak to you next week. Bye now.